This isn't a story about a mistake, not about something done wrong, not about an error written in ink or typed into a system, not about blame. It's a story about a moment, a small moment, a fragile moment, one that almost passed by without notice, a moment that didn't raise alarms, didn't flash red, didn't demand attention, a moment that lived quietly, between seconds, a moment where silence nearly won, where doing nothing felt easier, where moving on felt normal. And one nurse noticed. One nurse paused, looked closer, listened deeper, and she refused to let silence decide the ending. Hospitals are loud places, not just with sound, but with motion, with urgency, with endless activity. Machines beep in steady patterns, over and over, measuring time and heartbeats. Screens glow day and night, casting blue and green light across tired faces. Numbers scroll, numbers change, numbers speak constantly, as if they know everything. Vitals are read, charts are checked, decisions are made at speed. But sometimes, beneath all that noise, the truth doesn't make a sound. It doesn't beep. It doesn't flash. It doesn't announce itself. It hides in pauses, in shallow breaths, in what the body feels. But the screen cannot translate. This is the story of Nurse Abu. Not a symbol, not a headline, just a nurse in the middle of a shift. And one patient, quiet, waiting, depending on someone to notice. And the decision, brief, human, and irreversible, that stood between life and loss. Chapter 1, The Quiet Arrival. The patient came in without drama. No sirens, no frantic rush, no shouting, no chaos. Just a quiet walk into the room, like someone trying not to be noticed, like someone trying not to be a burden. No rush, no panic, just pain, controlled, contained, almost polite. The kind of pain that doesn't scream, the kind that tries to behave, the kind that sits quietly, behind a calm face. The chart said stable, a word that feels reassuring, a word that makes people relax, a word that makes the world feel safe. The monitor agreed. The numbers were steady. The line was smooth. The screen showed nothing dramatic. Everything looked fine, perfectly normal, nothing to worry about. That's what made it dangerous. Because danger doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it walks in quietly, wearing a mask of normalcy. And when everything appears fine, people stop looking, people stop listening, and the real threat slips in, without anyone noticing. Chapter 2, What the Machines Missed. Breathing was steady, not fast, not slow, just steady. Heart rate normal, a calm rhythm, a pulse that didn't alarm anyone. Vitals clean, everything within the expected range, everything that should have meant safe. But something felt off, not loud, not obvious, not something a machine could label. It was the kind of feeling you get when something is wrong, but the proof hasn't shown itself yet. A silent warning, a sense that the body is trying to tell you something. Without words, pain doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits. It hides. It bides its time. It sits quietly behind a smile, behind a calm breath, behind a chart that looks perfect. Everyone trusted the screen. Everyone believed the numbers. Everyone assumed the machines were right. Everyone, except Nurse Abu. She didn't just see the numbers. She saw the person behind them. She saw the small signs that no screen could capture. And in a place where numbers d. Chapter 3, The Details That Matter. She noticed the hands. Not because they were dramatic. Not because they were shaking or trembling. But because they were cold. Cold in a way that didn't match the room temperature. Cold in a way that spoke of fear. Cold in a way that said the body was trying to shut down. She noticed the hands were tight. Fingers clenched. Knuckles pale. As if holding on to something invisible. A grip not on hope, but on survival. She noticed the eyes. Not just their color. Not just their shape. But what they were trying to do. The eyes were trying to speak without words. Trying to send a message through silence. Trying to say something the mouth couldn't. A look that begged for help. A look that asked, "Can you see me?" She noticed the pauses between breaths. Not the breaths themselves, but the space between them. Too long. Too careful. Like each breath was a negotiation. Like each inhale was a risk. The kind of breathing that says, "I'm trying, but I'm not sure I can keep doing this." These are the things machines don't measure. No screen can show the tension in a hand. No monitor can read the language of the eyes. No device can hear the silent hesitation between breaths. These are the things only attention can catch. Only someone who cares enough to look closer. Only someone who refuses to be satisfied with what the numbers say. And those details are often the difference between life and death. Chapter 4. Listening without ears. She leaned closer, not because the room was too loud, but because the truth was too quiet. She didn't just move closer to the patient's body. She moved closer to the patient's story, closer to the moment where something was trying to be said, but couldn't find words. She asked a simple question, the kind of question anyone could ask, the kind of question that seems ordinary. But in that moment, it carried weight. Where does it hurt? The patient couldn't answer, not because they didn't want to, not because they didn't try, but because the pain had trapped the voice, because the body was speaking in a language the mouth couldn't use. But the body did answer, in the way only a human body can. A blink, a brief flicker of the eyelid, like a secret trying to escape, a twitch, a sudden movement that seemed involuntary, a reaction to something hidden inside, a signal, not loud, not dramatic, but unmistakable. Pain, asking to be understood. Pain, trying to communicate. Pain, reaching out from the inside, and hoping someone would listen. And in that silent exchange, Nurse Abu heard what the machines could not. She heard the unspoken message, a message that demanded action, before the body had to shout. Chapter 5. The decision. The chart said wait. A simple word. A safe word. A word that keeps people calm. Wait. Watch. Don't disturb the system. Let the process play out. The rule said observe. Follow protocol. Record the data. Stay within the boundaries. Observe. Document. Report. Then wait for the next step. But experience said act. Experience doesn't trust the calmness of a screen. Experience knows what stable can hide. Experience knows that silence is not always peace. Sometimes it's a warning. Nurse Abu checked again, not because she doubted herself, but because she trusted the signs she saw. And again, because she knew the difference between a moment and a pattern, between a one-time occurrence and a danger building slowly. She didn't rush. She didn't panic. She simply refused to accept stable as the final answer. Then she spoke up, not loudly, not dramatically, but firmly, because sometimes the hardest part is not noticing something. It's telling someone else. Even when doubt filled the room, even when the air felt heavy with uncertainty, even when everyone else seemed satisfied with what the machine said, even when silence was easier. Because silence keeps you safe. Silence keeps you comfortable. Silence keeps you from being wrong. But silence also keeps you from saving someone. And Nurse Abu chose action. Chapter 6. When silence breaks. Minutes passed. Not many. Not enough for anyone to notice the danger, but enough for the body to change. The room stayed quiet. The monitors stayed calm. The chart stayed unchanged. But something inside the patient was shifting. Slowly. Silently. Like a storm gathering strength. Then the truth revealed itself. Not with a warning. Not with a gentle sign. But with a sudden, undeniable clarity. Internal bleeding. Hidden. Fast. The kind of danger that doesn't announce itself. The kind that hides behind stable numbers. Until it can't anymore. And then, the alarms finally screamed. A sound that cut through the quiet. A sound that shattered the calm. A sound that forced everyone to wake up. The room moved. Doctors rushed in. Nurses ran. Hands moved. Instructions shouted. Everything became urgent. Too late for hesitation. Too late for second guesses. Too late for doubt. Too late for pride. Because pride would have meant ignoring the warning signs. Pride would have meant trusting the numbers more than the human being. Pride would have meant believing silence was harmless. But Nurse Abu didn't let silence win. Not this time. And because she didn't, the room finally acted. Before it was too late. Chapter 7. After the storm. The patient survived. Not because the room was perfect. Not because everything went exactly as planned. Not because the system was flawless. The patient survived. Because someone refused to accept silence as truth. Not because technology failed. Not because protocol succeeded. Not because the machines finally caught up. But because one nurse believed. A human is more than numbers. A human is more than a chart. A human is more than a line on a screen. A human is a story. A body. A heartbeat. A life. Nurse Abu didn't celebrate. She didn't clap. She didn't smile for the cameras. She didn't post. No hero captions. No social media recognition. No attention. She didn't brag. She didn't seek praise. She didn't want credit for saving a life. She simply did her job. She simply did what she knew was right. She clocked out. Finished her shift. Put her uniform away. Went home. Quietly. like someone who had just carried a heavy truth and didn't want to keep it. And then, the next day, she came back. Because this isn't a story about one moment. It's not a one-time event. It's a life lived in the same rooms, with the same alarms, the same charts, the same human beings waiting to be seen. And Nurse Abu returned. Because care doesn't end when the danger passes. Care continues. Every day. Because for her, the work never stops. And neither does the listening. Heroes don't always wear capes. Not all heroes arrive with a soundtrack. Not all heroes make headlines. Not all heroes show up in bright light. Sometimes they wear scrubs, simple fabric, worn-out shoes, a tired face, a steady heart. They don't look like heroes. They don't act like heroes. They just do the work and listen when the world doesn't. They hear what others ignore. They notice what others overlook. They feel what others refuse to feel. They stand in the quiet spaces where no one else is paying attention. Behind every chart is a life waiting to be seen, a person behind the numbers, a story behind the data, a heart behind the line, a family waiting at home, a future still possible, a breath still worth saving. And sometimes, the smallest act of attention is the most powerful thing in the room. Sometimes, listening is the difference between silence and survival, because silence can be peaceful, but it can also be dangerous. And in the hands of someone who cares, listening becomes a kind of rescue. It becomes the moment. That changes everything. If this story moved you, share it. If you believe human care still matters, subscribe. Because the stories that save lives are often the ones we almost ignore. Welcome to Cipher Phantom.